Traveling the Vortex.
We've joined the Doctor as he travels the Vortex, and all praise the Great One. It's episode 417. I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
I'm Glenn.
How are you guys?
Good. How are you doing?
Pretty good. You guys have a good week?
If you hear any weird audio glitches, listener, it's because we are listener. We only have one now. Listeners, it's because we are actually we're trying something new. We're actually recording from our own homes. So hopefully if this works out, then we'll be able to do much more with this, bringing more people maybe into the podcast for a little simpler session. So anyway, doing great.
Or potentially if one of us is with illness and can't go and expose the others, we can still have an episode out.
We won't have a week off like we did a few weeks back. So
yeah, in theory.
This is not meant to replace the actual FaceTime that we get so rarely, other than the week.
No, I won't see you for like 2 or 3 months now, Sean. So
I knew you were going to abuse this privilege if we gave it to you.
Did you guys do anything fun this week?
Wow. No, not really. I don't think I did. I watched, what's it called?
I don't know.
Somebody else go and I'll think about it here.
All we did was finish The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and now we're sad there's not more to watch. It was so good. Really enjoyed it. I don't like how the season ended. I don't agree with what happened, but, Zach Levi shows up and he's as charming as ever.
We actually had a fun outing today. We took both granddaughters into Kansas City and went to Legoland and had them running around and thoroughly exhausted them there. And then went and saw Mary Poppins Returns.
How was the sequel?
Was it?
Practically perfect in some ways. It's a fun movie. Emily Blunt is practically perfect. She really is an outstanding choice. Now, obviously, she's not Julie Andrews. I mean, that's just a given. Nobody could be, but she's really good. And there are moments in the movie that it just nails it. It is absolutely the perfect. This is exactly what I wanted. And one of those is right at when she first appears and she comes floating down out of the clouds with the umbrella. I was near tears just because it's such an iconic image, and there it was again. And that was fantastic. And then there are other moments where it feels almost like they were trying too hard to kind of beat for beat match the original film. And I was like, well, we've already seen this. You'll do something different. Give us something, because when the film is original, it really works. It works very well. But then it seemed like they kind of kept straying back into familiar territory because they were too afraid to let it be something different, which I thought was kind of a shame. But it's worth seeing. It's not the original. It can't be. I mean, Mary Poppins is part of the holy trinity of live action Disney stuff for me. So
yeah, and I would hope that people wouldn't go into it hoping that it was the original, because I mean, it's got to be its own thing, and nothing will hold a candle to the original.
Yeah. Did you figure out what you did?
I did. I remembered. Actually, didn't remember. I had some help from the internet. There's a documentary on Netflix. You guys have probably seen this. It's called The Bill Murray Stories: Life Lessons Learned from a Mythical Man.
Yes.
A documentary maker decides that he wants to look further into. We've all heard the stories. Bill Murray, and there's evidence online. Bill Murray shows up. He's in an engagement photo. Bill Murray shows up at a party. He's doing dishes. It sets it up, and it kind of puts out all of these different, things that people have purported to have seen Bill Murray at or doing. And so the documentary filmmaker goes through and he talks to all these people that have had encounters with Bill Murray, just out in society, where the guy is just out and being himself. It's a terrific movie. It's really, really well done. There's a little bit of a twist at the end, and I can't divulge it because I think it ruins the spirit of the film. But it's really good, really well put together, and it's on Netflix right now. And then after having watched that, they were talking about one of his films, Rock the Casbah, which I had not seen. And so fortunately it's on Netflix as well. So I watched it. It doesn't get a favorable rating on Rotten Tomatoes, but for the most part, I enjoyed it. I think that it has some issues. I think the director, and I can't remember the director's name, but he also directed Wag the Dog. It's not. It's kind of in that same style of Wag the Dog, not in story wise, but just in tone and feel. But there are a few moments where they kind of feel like they're sleepwalking through scenes, and I think part of that is some of it's left up to improvisation, which I don't think necessarily works so well on a certain level on this film. But overall, I thought it was an enjoyable film. It's a good story. It's got Bruce Willis. I had no idea Bruce Willis was in it. The story hinges around Bill Murray is basically a small time record producer who's kind of put out a bigger image of him as he is. Zoe Deschanel's in it. They end up going over to, I think it's Afghanistan, and they're going to perform for the troops. Well, things go awry, and he ends up discovering a Afghani singer who wants to be on the first person on their version of American Idol. But that's all I'll say about it, because you really need to see it if you're interested, because there's a lot of surprises in it as well along the way. Kate Hudson's in it as well, so I liked it. I don't think it's deserving of the rottenness that it's getting on Rotten Tomatoes, but it certainly isn't his best film.
I may have to add that to the eventual pile.
There you go. There you
so
go.
too.
Well, the nice thing is, it's on Netflix, so it's always sitting there waiting for you until it's not.
Until Sean's ready to go watch it, and then it won't.
Right.
Be there.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Besides that, spent some time with some family today, so that was it.
Nice. We took Jim into the zoo since it was so nice out.
Yeah, God, it was gorgeous out.
Yeah, it was 60s, 66 or something. So
don't get used to it. They're calling for ice and 14 degrees on Thursday.
Well, that's if we get the precipitation, which they're saying isn't as likely now. So fingers crossed.
Let's hope not.
But it will be cold again midweek.
Yeah, well, it's already going to cool down tomorrow. So
yeah. All right. Well, should we move on to news?
Let's. Oh, so some kind of sad news if you're still playing Doctor Who Legacy. Tiny Rebel Games have announced that the game will end or close in 2 weeks' time.
Oh.
They posted on their Facebook page that it is with a heavy heart we report that we're shutting down Doctor Who Legacy effective 2 weeks from now. Our agreement has ended with the BBC. We have chosen not to attempt another renewal. They go on to talk about how proud they are of what they accomplished with their very first mobile game, and they recognize that there were some sore feelings about the transition to Doctor Who Infinity.
So now, does that mean just Legacy's going away? Infinity's going to stick around?
Yeah,
or?
Infinity will still be here.
Okay.
Legacy is just gone. The game will still be able to be played offline after it gets shut down if you have it installed, but you will not be able to download, and the app will be removed from app stores eventually.
Right.
And as of today, all app purchasing will be turned off.
Okay.
And if you're still playing, they did release a final promo code on their Facebook page.
Oh, well, too late.
Well, yeah.
I guess it'll still unlock probably, right? I suppose if you
I think you have 2 weeks to unlock it and unlock anything else from on the internet that you need. You just can't actually make purchases.
It's just purchasing. Okay, yeah. I suppose if you have the latest update too, it'll probably unlock.
Yeah.
So.
Wonder if I could get it to update one last time.
It had a nice long run. It came out in 2013.
Yeah, it had some years on it. I think what's the new one called? I forget every time. Infinity. I think they're right. I think they did run into some strife from fans of Legacy when they, did the transition to Infinity. And I just don't think, I don't know because I haven't been following Infinity, but I mean, I wasn't a fan of it myself.
Yeah, me neither.
I felt like there wasn't enough change. It added what I didn't like about Legacy, which was all of the info scenes and the storytelling, which I didn't mind a little bit of it, like they did at first, but it just seemed to kind of get too story intensive. And I think that they took that to another level with Infinity. And so to me, that's what the big turnoff was. They didn't change enough of the core game, and they added what I didn't like about that was, getting heavy in Legacy.
Yeah, was my complaint with it too. In other news, Real Time has announced a new feature film that's going to be coming out called Syl and the Devil Seeds of Orador. And yes, it is
crickets. Crickets. Nobody says anything.
Nabil Shaban returning to play Syl.
Oh, good.
And the script is written by Syl's creator, Philip Martin. So it's going to be an hour-long movie.
Oh, very good. Well,
yeah.
They certainly
spin-off content.
Yeah, it's the what is it? Downtime is theirs. I think they also did. What was the Demons one that they just recently released? That's a connects or a quasi unofficial sequel to the Demons. Demons of something.
Yeah.
Anyway, they did those in the 90s, but they re-released them on DVD, and I think they've had some success with them. So I think that's probably what has spurred them coming back and doing another film. So I'm glad for them. I look forward to maybe seeing that, putting it in my collection.
Yeah,
I wonder if they had to clear that with BBC or talk to the showrunners. Is like, do you have any plans to go back and feature this villain anytime soon, or they just kind of looked at him and went, no.
No,
the intellectual property works so different there. It's kind of like because Philip Martin created the character, he has the rights to the character, so he should be able to do what he wants.
Right. What they won't be able to do. Right. What they won't be able to do is use, trademark things like TARDIS, Doctor Who, those kind of things. Anything outside of that, like they've done with Downtime and is it Demons of Devil's Sand? I don't remember what it's called. That the other film, and they have done some other films in the past as well. What they'll do is they will jump in there and they will make sure that all of any references to the Doctor Who proper is excised, and they will stay with, as Keith said, the intellectual property of the author.
Yeah. Well, good for them. I guess I look forward to another Soul adventure.
Well, as long as Syl's still the bad guy, not the good guy.
Well, he's the weird. I think he's the protagonist. So
maybe they pull the Boomtown on us.
I think if they, I think if they do it clever enough, maybe. I mean, Syl has always been sort of that bad guy that you kind of like. He's a bit smarmy, but he's never really super devious. Maybe devious is the wrong word. He's not malignant. I think maybe is what I'm looking for.
Maleficent.
Yeah, he's not Maleficent.
He's definitely not that. Well, that's it in news.
We'll put it on the schedule.
Yeah,
coming in 2023.
Get one of the. It's going to be limited to 1,000 copies. So, Sean, you better hop on there and order it on November the 4th.
Oh, is it?
It will be available in Blu-ray.
It's that far out?
Yeah.
Okay.
November the 4th of which year?
This year.
Of this year?
Yeah.
I'm actually kind of shocked that they're that far along with it already.
Well, they probably doing a lot behind the scenes already, yeah.
I wonder if they updated his makeup.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's move on to feedback.
Our feedback this week, Jameson sent us some audio.
Well, let's give it a listen.
Hello, Vortexers. My feedback keeps getting longer. Is that good that I find so much to say about your episodes? Probably. Hopefully, at least. Anyway, Braveheart. This one didn't get nearly as long. I'm only covering episodes 52 and 53 here, plus Side Trip 2. I'm recording this as audio to give you guys a break since my last email was so long. The delay on last episode, I realized that it wasn't planned, allowed me to stick 3 episodes in a side trip instead of the 2 episodes I thought I'd get on there into my last feedback. So I'll skip the replies this time and just do a few episodes to try and keep this brief. Comments then. Episode 52, The Doctor, the Widow, and the Wardrobe. Didn't really care for this story. It was okay, it wasn't awful, it was just kind of meh for me. I didn't care for the Wooden King and Queen, and the Space Loggers didn't really grab me. It's just not very memorable. That's it for this episode. Let's move on to episode 53. Do you guys realize how hard it was to wait for this episode and not skip ahead? I'm a big Finish listener and couldn't wait to hear you guys get some of my favorites. But I'm committed to listening to these in order, that way I'm not confused by any references you guys made. So here we go. My comments on your reviews of the first 3 McGanns from Big Finish. Okay, so Sherlock. Great series. You talk about Mark Gatiss. He has currently, as of the end of 2018, written 9 episodes of New Who, 2 Big Finish releases, and 4 novels. His TARDIS wiki page has a full breakdown of his Doctor Who related work. So I get most of my Big Finish through my local library. Our system has a feature on their website where you can make requests for items outside the collection. While they do purchase some of these requests, most come from other library systems. The library with the biggest collection of Big Finish audios, at least that I know of, is in Rochester, Minnesota. The other place some have come from is the Hyde Free Park Library in New York State. So, if you guys have any listeners from those 2 locations or vicinities, then they have places to go to check out Big Finish for free. The Indianapolis Public Library also has a collection of them as well. Before I get to the stories themselves, I thought I'd mention that Star Wars has a few full cast audio dramas, all adaptations, and that Big Finish has ruined them for me. Audiobooks are different, as they only have a single reader who does all the voices. That I don't seem to mind. So, in the mid-90s, NPR produced audio drama versions of the original trilogy. Some actors from the films returned, Mark Hamill, Billy D. Williams, Anthony Daniels, while others did not. These I enjoyed, and I listened to them before discovering Big Finish, so that probably helped. There were also a few audio drama adaptations of a handful of Star Wars comics, Dark Empire 2, and Crimson Empire. All 3 are good stories that I've read in comic form. I enjoyed Crimson Empire, which has no film characters in major roles. I can't remember if there were any in minor roles or not. At least until the second disc started skipping. Then it was like, come on, and I had to return it. Dark Empire was a different story. It features Han, Luke, and Leia as main characters, and while the story is good, because I'm used to Big Finish with the original actors, the voices used were too far from the film voices, and as such took me out of the story and hindered my enjoyment of the audio. So, moving on to the stories you reviewed, let's start with Storm Warning. This is one of my favorite Paul McGann stories, and I've enjoyed most of his. While the opening scenes are a bit clunky, with him talking to himself, or the TARDIS, whichever you prefer, he grabs you with his energy and joy in the unknown. These early McGanns are much more fun and lighthearted compared to what comes later with Series 4 of the Lucy Miller stories, Dark Eyes and the Time War, where we get a darker, more weary Doctor. I like Charlie. She was my first audio companion when I first started listening to Big Finish with Patient Zero, Main Rage 124. Not necessarily the best place to jump in, though I enjoyed it. She shines with the 8th Doctor for most of her run, and, spoilers, the decision to have her switch doctors and join the 6th Doctor was well done and breathed new life into her character. She then went on to do 2 Doctorless box sets after her run with the 6th Doctor ended. I've listened to the first, and it was okay. Haven't gotten around to the second one. Okay, to set you straight on Vortizors and Reapers. If I understand it, Vortizors are vulture-like creatures that look like pterosaurs that feed on time energy and crashed or stranded time ships that are stuck in the vortex. Reapers are more closely related to chronivores, see the time monster, and work to sterilize wounds in the time stream. I liked the Triskeli, and the way the Doctor defeated them was well done. In talking about their ship, you question whether it's still the ship or their home planet. I got the impression that they're a nomadic race, and the image I got of the ship, or at least the part where we meet them, is that it's almost an arena, or like the Senate floor in the prequel trilogy in Star Wars. Hopes this helps. So, you mentioned that this is McGann's first outing as the Doctor. Yes and no. It's the first release, and the first sequentially of this block, but McGann actually recorded Stones of Venice first. On the topic of losing the TARDIS, if you go back and watch through Hartnell's early stories, you'll find that the crew gets separated from it a lot. Dalek invasion of Earth and the Romans spring immediately to mind. So it's not as uncommon as you think. Sword of Orion. I enjoy this one too. It is, at its core, a nice base under siege story. The ship scenes are creepy and well done. The bazaar was fun, and I'd love to see them bring it back in another story, as it has so much potential as a location. This story is a prequel or tie-in to the Cybermen series from Big Finish that I think focuses on the Orion War. I haven't listened to them, so I can't really say much more than that. Too many stories that feature the Doctor to get through first. You know? Stones of Venice. A good story, very atmospheric, and a nice little love story involved. Did not see some of the revelations the first time through. After listening a few more times, they're evident but well hidden and not in your face obvious. I see that I enjoyed it a lot more than you guys did. Maybe it's because I've listened to it several times, albeit none recently, because I remember that I didn't care as much for it the first time. So maybe it's multiple listenings. And, compared to the next release, this is positively brilliant. However, it's hearing you guys rant that makes your show so worthwhile. You stay clean while being immensely entertaining. Also, you mentioned that it has a very classic series feel. Now, this is coming from memory, but if I remember right, Stones of Venice was originally one of a handful of scripts that was used to try and entice Tom Baker over to Big Finish. It didn't work, as Baker didn't join on with Big Finish until 2010, 9 years later. Lastly, at least episode-wise, Side Trip 2. Apart from Minuet in Hell, of which the brig is the only saving grace, I found myself agreeing with the good doctor on most things. There were a few that I hadn't heard, such as the Dalek Empire and Cybermen ranges, but I'll hold off on specific comments until I reach your coverage of them. Okay, hopefully I can keep this brief. I'm going to give my take on the first season of The New Doctor. First of all, I don't hate the 13th Doctor. I haven't given up on watching new episodes because the Doctor's a woman now and should never have been made a woman and all that. It is what it is. Did I like the new season? I don't know. It had some good episodes. Rosa, Demons of the Punjab, Kerblam, Resolution. None of the others were bad. They weren't loving monsters or fear her. They were just kind of there. The Doctor hasn't really solidified with me yet. The companions, apart from Graham, who's awesome, are just kind of there. Ryan got an arc, but it was tied into Graham's. Yaz, who I want to like, is just kind of there. Yes, I think Chibnall's still getting his footing, but there's nothing that really screams awesome, or that's cool, or wow. And the music, I don't even notice the music. Murray Gold, he had pieces that stood out and that got stuck in your head. I Am the Doctor, all the strange, strange creatures, the Dalek music. Those all stick in my head and I love them. Shepherd's Boy from Heaven Sent, or Hellbent, whichever one it is. Whichever one's the good one. Here, there just aren't. It's there, but it doesn't stick out, especially to someone who isn't focusing on the musical cues. I'll probably have more to say when I've rewatched it more and when I get to your reviews. But for now, that's my brief take on the season. So, I watched the first episode of TARDIS Sauce, the one with Andrew Cartmel. I enjoyed it. Tim Harvey's feed was a bit garbled sound-wise and hard to understand at times, but otherwise a good show. Cartmel showed us his vinyl collection, and that reminded me that Big Finish has done a few vinyl releases. Light at the End, their 50th anniversary release, had a vinyl version, now sold out. Chimes of Midnight and Spare Parts each have a vinyl release. They cost $113.48 each on the Big Finish website, and they're a limited run of 500, so when they're sold out, they're sold out. Look through your achievement lists, both of them. I didn't count up my score, but as those were from 2011 and 2012, maybe you should consider releasing a new DLC pack. It's been 5, 6 years. Do you guys watch honest trailers on YouTube? I find most of them fun. They have a trailer for Star Trek The Next Generation, and both for classic and New Who. There's also honest trailer commentaries that go behind the scenes. Also, if you or any of your listeners have Spotify, then you can listen to select Big Finish stories through them. These include the first seasons of The Lost Stories, the 8th Doctor Adventures and 4th Doctor Adventure ranges, the first 50 main range releases, the full Destiny of the Doctor series, the first 2 seasons of Companion Chronicles, and others like, I think, Dalek Empire and Cybermen are on there, maybe a few others. But there's commercials in weird places if you have the free version, but otherwise, nice source of Doctor Who. Another question for you. What is your favorite Dalek story? And this can be TV, audio, book, comic, etc. Doesn't have to be TV only. Also, same range of materials apply. What is your favorite Cyberman story? And I want one from each of you, just to be clear. I'll answer mine, and the feedback replies to this feedback, whenever that ends up being. Finally, I'll give the rundown on my favorite incarnation of that renegade we love to hate, the Master. I've enjoyed the Master most of the time. My favorite is Delgado, hands down. He's suave and elegant, and yet he's a joy to watch. He makes a good villain without the over-the-topness of later incarnations. It was a shame when he passed prematurely. After Delgado, I actually really like Sim. He captures the Master's insanity well without the theatrics and cheesiness of Ainley. I really like the Series 3 finale and the end of time. Not that they aren't without their flaws, but I still enjoy them. Peter Pratt was the Master in Deadly Assassin, and the same incarnation was replaced by Jeffrey Beavers in Keeper of Traken. My main encounters with this incarnation have been with Big Finish, with Dust Breeding, and Master. I like what I hear, but he doesn't jump ahead of Delgado or Sim for me. Alex McQueen plays the Master for Big Finish versus the 7th and 8th Doctor primarily. He gets a good balance between Delgado and Sim. Missy is somewhere in the middle. I like her take, but she's not a favorite. Jacoby is good, very subdued, which makes him even more of a menace. The first War Doctor box set is excellent, and his appearance in Gallifrey Time War 1 is really good too. Haven't heard any of his other appearances on audio. Sorry. Ainley is fine, but his over-the-top schemes and his performance are almost pantomime. I don't mind him. He's just too over-the-top and outrageous to be among the true greats. That's what puts him at the bottom for me. Oh, Eric Roberts. He's in there, but with only one appearance in the TV movie. He might be below Ainley, at least until the New River Song comes out with the different incarnations of the Master. Then he might rise. Forgot about him. So, I think that's it for this one. I'm enjoying the show and looking forward to where you go next. Keep up the good work and good luck. Jamie.
Very good. Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you, Jamie. Good to hear from you this time.
Yeah. It's gave us a break so we didn't have to read it out.
We're missing all of our visual cues tonight. It just dawned on me why this isn't flowing quite. Okay, it's me. Yeah.
All right. Well, should we move on to our review?
Pay no attention to that podcaster behind the curtain.
The 8 Truths, London, 2015. The Doctor is looking for a lost space probe. Lucy Miller is feeling just plain lost on a world she no longer quite belongs to. Perhaps there's someone who can help. A chance encounter with an old sparring partner leads Lucy to the eightfold truth. A bunch of crystal-bearing cranks who reckon a rebel sun is on its way to purge the earth. As if. But what if they're right? The apocalypse is upon us, and as humankind counts down the last days of its existence, the Doctor races to unmask the eightfold truth and uncovers an old and deadly enemy.
Go ahead, Sean.
Bum, bum, bum!
Yeah, I'd say so. Both this and World Wide Web.
So Glenn cornered me outside your house about 2 weeks ago, and he says, "How did you keep a lid on this for 8 years?" And I said, wasn't easy.
I remember going back in my memory to this was back when we were recording at your apartment, Keith, when you lived at that apartment that was attached to that back of that house.
Oh yeah.
And I I remember us going outside, Sean and I, and him saying, "I can't wait till you get to this story. I can't wait till you see who shows up. I can't wait till you see." Set all the way back like 8 years ago, and he's like, "This was so good. I can't believe I can't wait till we get to this on the schedule." And so for 8 years, the guy has had to stay tight-lipped and not divulge any of the information about this story. And to be quite honest with you, over the years in my head, I've built it up really big and thought it must be this big epic. And for some reason, I had in my head that it was going to be a Cyberman story. And I don't know why I thought that. I'm not sure what Sean would have said that I would have glommed onto that. But so I had no idea that we were going to get the return of the Eight Legs.
Ooh, say it again.
The Eight Legs.
Ooh. So, first of all, the whole run with McGann is awesome because it's McGann, but it's also awesome because they keep going back to these, kind of one-off villains and going, yeah, we could reuse it. Hey, how about the Crinoid? Yeah, let's do another Crinoid story. Or, hey, how about Morbius? Surely we can bring him back from the dead. Yeah, okay, let's do a Morbius story. What about the Eight Legs? Yeah. And we'll put him in a story called World Wide Web. And nobody will see it coming.
What I think is very clever about that is the fact that World Wide Web, the first thing I think of is, maybe this is why I thought it was going to be Cybermen. I think of technology. I think of, the data that's sent across the world. You don't think of a physical web like a spider's web.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what impressed me the most about it is the fact that suddenly, we're listening to this story about the spiders, basically. We don't call them spiders because they don't like that, but we're listening to spiders, and it's the Eight Legs. I mean, it's not just some common household spiders. It's not the spiders that we got in arachnids of the UK. It's the Eight Legs. They went there, and I thought, wow, this is so clever.
It was just it's just amazingly on point with how it was. They pulled the rug out from under me, and it does it so deceptively because the first episode is very kind of, I don't know, almost run of the mill in a way that we've got Lucy, and then all of a sudden there's this cult and they're brainwashing people, and you're kind of like, oh, okay, we've kind of been down that road before, but she'll sort it out because it's Lucy. Right. And then she falls for it, and you're like, whoa, what is the deal? And then you're kind of like, well, the doctor will sort it out, but he's really absorbed with this space probe, and you're kind of like, okay, anytime now. When are you going, dude, when are you going to fix this? And then the reveal happens that it's the Eight Legs, and it just all of a sudden becomes this whole different ball of wax.
Yeah.
And it just, my jaw was on the floor when that happened. And, like I said, World Wide Web, it's the best title of a Doctor Who episode ever, because even if you didn't go with technology, even if maybe you went another direction with it, I'd have gone Yeti before it had gone spiders.
There's absolutely.
Way I'd have thought of that.
No, it's so far out there because it's I don't think, they've probably returned in some of the novels that we haven't read yet, but it is so far out there because we hadn't done anything with that in any of the Big Finish that we'd experienced so far. They have not returned on television. We've made reference to them. We made reference to them when we watched Arachnids, but just to bring them back. And the cool thing about it is the trappings, the surroundings of it are perfect for it. In fact, we should have suspected it just based on the fact that we've got this cult, that is for all intents and purposes, brainwashing its members that are joining. It has figured out a way to, infiltrate Lucy, or not infiltrate her, but to draw her in a way. And they even make reference to the crystals. I still wasn't tipped off when they when they had her hold the crystal that was actually causing the influence.
Well, because cults are all about New Age.
Absolutely.
Sure, yeah, why not?
Absolutely. It's just crazy. It's so good. It has some issues with it. I think one of the things that I pointed to when you and I chatted about it offline was the headhunter. I like the fact that they gave the headhunter some resolution. I like the fact that she's involved in this, and still, it's a business decision. It's just business as usual for her. But there at the end of World Wide Web, near the end of World Wide Web, when she's kind of the one that's a integral part in dispatching the Eight Legs, I kind of wanted it to be a little more grand. I wanted it to be more of a bigger effort to kind of maybe vindicate her for what she's done. And I think you had a pretty good argument for the reason why they didn't do that, or the reason why they didn't need to do that. But I think I wanted just a little bit more, especially since she had done all of these awful things. And if you look at it, they're kind of benign awful. They're not, I mean, she really was. And she always made it a point that, they were, it's business as usual for her. That's her job. That's what she does. But I wanted a little bit more, but you kind of, mentioned it didn't necessarily need to be that way.
Yeah, I think, for me, the headhunter, she's always been, kind of a great foil in this series, and a definite pain in the tuchus. And she's very much, her standard MO. She's here. She's working with a more powerful enemy, doing the kind of the legwork. Just set this up. And then when it comes, push comes to shove, she gets turned on. And in what I thought was just the most incredible way of going out, that the psychic energy that she chooses to have them, turn it on herself to try and regain her freedom was just like, wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
Just and the power of will that would take. And if the doctor did it, we'd be going, oh yeah, he can do it. And she does it, and it almost works. It almost becomes a breakthrough. And you mentioned that you wanted that salvation moment, and I don't necessarily see it as salvation. I see it as, it's self-preservation. She wasn't really going to, this will free everybody. She was doing it because she didn't want to be caught in that web.
Right. There was still a bit of selfishness to it. You're absolutely right. And when the push came to shove, she realized, oh, this is now affecting me. So,
but I was okay with it. In some ways, I almost think after everything she's done and all the people that she's hunted, that maybe we'd have been, maybe it needed to be a little more oomph. Maybe there needed to be maybe she needed to be eaten.
Yeah,
by a spider, something truly terrible. But I don't know. I thought it was an okay send off.
I think Lucy really gets a chance to shine here. I like the fact that she's the one that's taken over. I like the fact that what was the journalist's name that he was? I cannot for the life of me remember her name. The journalist gal that was helping them out. I felt a little bad, especially when she's such an
Karen. No, the Karen's the headhunter's
assistant. Karen's the returning gal. Kelly, maybe it was Kelly. Anyway, well, and that was the other thing is every once in a while, I think it was Kelly, because every once in a while I would get Kelly and Karen mixed up when they would start talking, it took me a little while to go, oh wait, okay, this is this character, not this character. But I think what I really liked is the fact that I felt bad that Kelly ends up, spoilers, biting it, and when she ends up going to the place of, let's quote unquote, heaven. I had really hoped that the doctor would have been able to figure out a way to bring her back. But fortunately, because of the circumstance that Lucy was in, he was able to pluck her consciousness back out. So I liked that. But the fact that Lucy is, I mean, she's come a long way since starting to travel with the Doctor, and her to be able to kind of, what am I looking for? Keep a bit of herself and not could be completely overtaken. I thought that was very, very cleverly done.
And once again, there were many worry moments in this one where as things were going on, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, so Lucy's been brainwashed. Okay, so she's been taken over. Okay, so now she's got a giant spider in her. And now she's dead.
One thing after another.
Okay. Just, well, maybe this is it. Maybe this might be the one.
I had several of those thoughts while going through it.
We've been kind of dominating the conversation, Keith. What do you think?
I really enjoyed it. I don't have any complaints about the story. I like the small, subtle references to the fact that they were the 8 legs, and I didn't really pick up on it until it was the big revelation. The fact that they had the crystals and the eightfold truths and all of this little stuff. I'm just going along. Oh, I wonder what it could be, and then
we
bam.
totally should have seen it coming. So when they're able to do something like that, it's like, wow, very clearly done.
And I like the idea that they're trying to. The new queen wants to be a new great one and wants to, take over not over the earth, but the cosmos. And I thought they further the mythos of 8 legs. Fantastic. They do such a good job with that aspect of it, and then all the stuff with Lucy is great, and the Doctor is of course phenomenal throughout all of it, and the supporting cast I thought was great too. I really liked Karen. I wound up liking more than I thought I would, and then the other two, Kelly and the scientist guy, whose name I could never quite catch.
Dr. Sangakkara, I believe is what.
Yeah, he sounded almost like somebody that we just had not too long ago, but I knew that wasn't the same actor.
Right. Yeah. What was that?
The guy from Game of Thrones.
Oh, what was that story that he was in? He was very, very similar. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. But I enjoyed him, and the fact that I really liked that once it got to the far enough that the Doctor, everyone's, under the influence of them, and they're trying to be, oh, we need to save this person now. And the Doctor's like, I can't save everybody. We got a bigger fish to fry. And then I physically can't save everybody because I mentally can't handle that. I need to go take a nap. I like that they didn't make the Doctor a full out superhuman who could go in and just fix everything right away.
Right.
The struggle I thought was really good in it too.
I like the fact that the scientist guy, Dr. Sangakkara, I just wanted to say it one more time. I really like that he's so like even keel. He's like, the Doctor steps in and says, hey, have you tried this? Have you tried this? And he's very much, yeah, no, that's a good idea. And just so even keel. And he makes him such a lovable character because he's so accepting of everything that the Doctor's saying, and he's just going to go and buy it. He ends up being the one that kind of, helps when the Doctor ends up overcome. And I think he blacked out or passed out, and he ends up taken to the hospital. But even better is the fact that when the whole world is suddenly becoming succumbed to the Great One, and it doesn't miss a beat. He's still the same guy. He still has the same, mannerisms, and you almost feel like, oh, he hasn't been taken over by this until they kind of drop the other shoe, and you're like, oh, he has been taken over, but he's so even keel that it doesn't really, it affects him, but it doesn't, and luckily the Doctor's able to kind of bring him back a lot, very quickly. And I think I chalked it up to the fact that the guy's so smart, but I just thought that was really well done.
I also like Goodman, the guy kind of behind the Eightfold Truth, and how he was so despicable at first, and then it turned into this, he admits what was going on, and then not realizing what was really happening. I like his growth as a character.
Well, the first time that they call him and they tell him that they've found the chosen one, and he says, like, are you sure? Can you make sure so-and-so hears this, first have her interview? and you can kind of tell that he's kind of taken by surprise as well. And that's what made me kind of wonder if he wasn't fully on board with what this was, and maybe he was a bit of a con man. but I
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of set it aside, and then later for him to kind of divulge that this was something that I just kind of came up with. It wasn't. There was no actual great one. It was just to find that out later. It was like it was very reassuring that okay, I did have this figured out, but you did it well enough that I wasn't like, oh, I knew it.
Yeah. I thought the first half, really first 3/4 of this, the first episode, really had a Torchwood feel to it.
Yeah,
Especially with the conspiracy. It very much felt very along the same lines. And I liked it. I liked that aspect of it.
Yeah.
And then it just goes kind of nuts once the the 8 legs finally show themselves.
I also enjoy the fact that at the heart of the problem is that damn stellar manipulator showing back up again. And it's like,
Right.
Why is this thing still a thing? Why are we still dealing with this? And it was like, I love the idea that these tools, because that's all they are to the Time Lords. It's just a tool. Yep. It's a hammer, and they're floating around the universe being picked up by unscrupulous beings to perform all kinds of other things. And the Doctor's still dealing with it.
Yeah. He's playing cleanup.
One of my favorite bits in the whole thing is the Doctor and Kelly, I think it was, discussing the pronunciation of Metabolus.
Yeah.
That was a wonderful tongue-in-cheek moment.
Yeah.
Which was this recorded after Matt Smith had goofed it up in the series? Is that why they did? I wondered if maybe that was the reason.
I think it's because it's inconsistencies. Wasn't it inconsistently pronounced throughout Pertwee's run?
I don't recall that. I know for sure that Matt Smith said it wrong, and everybody kind of came down on the fact that no, that's not how. I don't remember how he said it, but he said it incorrectly. And
I think he said Metabolus.
Yeah, something like that. And everybody came down on it really big time on the message boards. And so I had wondered if maybe this was because of that. But I suppose if this was recorded before that, maybe that is the case. Maybe because of the inconsistency in the Pertwee era.
This was recorded October 2008 and released June 2009.
So long before.
Yeah. Let's see. It would have been Death of the Doctor, the Sarah Jane adventure, I believe, is where he mentions Metabolus and says it wrong.
No, it's Hyde.
Oh, it is Hyde. Yeah, you're right. It is Hyde. So that would have been, that would have been later. Yeah. I don't remember what year, but the
2013, according to a quick Google search.
But funny how it kind of, how do you say, instead of retroactive, kind of forward actively fixes the way that he says it.
This story is just such a clever way to reuse a villain I never thought we would revisit.
Yeah, absolutely.
and then once it was revealed and it happened, I thought, how has this not been done before?
It's to look back at everything that at least we're familiar with and we've done, and for them not to have resurfaced and then resurfaced now, I just think is brilliant.
Yeah. I didn't even pick up on the radiation poisoning that the Doctor refers to, because the poof of stuff in his face, wasn't that supposed to be radiation that would have killed him?
Yes, and that in fact that's what
happened for the third.
Yeah, that's what does in the third Doctor.
Even that didn't tip me off that it was the 8 legs.
Yeah, I was the same way. None of the clues that were obvious there were obvious until the reveal, and I think that was so well done.
Now, who's responsible for this masterpiece?
I didn't look at the writer. Huh.
That's right. Let's shed some more praise on my man Eddie.
Who is it?
Eddie Robson.
Oh, Eddie Robson. Yeah. You are a fan.
He does good work.
Can't off the top of my head think. Oh, he did the Little Drummer Boy that we just reviewed, right?
He did, yeah.
Yeah.
He also did Human Resources and Grand Theft Cosmos.
Yeah, I knew he had done some of the Eighth Doctor. I was wondering if there was anything outside of Eighth Doctor that. we had listened.
Memory Lane, ID, and Urgent Calls.
Okay, yeah, and we really liked Urgent Calls. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
He did.
I remember thinking.
I don't.
Memory
We haven't.
Lane was
I think
okay.
Glenn's listened to it. The Five Companions.
Yes, I have. Yep.
That's one of his as well.
Okay.
We've
All right.
not reviewed that one yet, but
I think he's a clever writer. He's able to kind of he's a bit Moffat-esque, although he doesn't overcomplicate plots. He's very Moffat-esque in the sense that he's able to kind of, I want to call it, what do they call it? 3-card Monty. You're looking at this card while he's changing this card, and then he reveals the card that it actually is, and it's like, wow, I didn't expect you to go there. So,
and he's not all of his stories are fantastic, but when he lands them, he really lands them.
oh yeah, absolutely.
And this is an instance where he really lands it.
No, absolutely. Cool. Anything else about these two stories that
I know you mentioned when we were talking outside, Glenn, that you kind of had a moment where you were a little saddened that they had stolen the Death in Heaven bit with the uploading of the mines, and then had to go, oh, wait a minute.
yeah, though that would have been totally after this story, and that's where my head went. Is it reminded me very much of the matrix that they have in Death in Heaven, where they're uploading the consciousness of the humans so that they can then seed the earth of the Cybermen later. And yeah, I completely went there, and I did. I thought, oh, they kind of stole that. No, he didn't steal that idea. It's actually, if you're going to blame anybody for stealing, it's the new writers that stole.
Yeah,
or it's Moffat that stole the story, or started the idea, not the story, but the idea.
The further we get into older Big Finish stuff, that I start to realize Moffat kind of snatched quite a few ideas for his stories.
Well, I used to wonder how much he was in tune with the Big Finish stuff until Night of the Doctor, when he actually name drops the companions. Yeah. And it was at that point that I went, aha, this guy actually follows along with the Big Finish stuff too. So now I'm more inclined to think that he did farm some ideas from already previously released materials.
I mean, it's not that big of a jump, even without this, because, the Matrix from Deadly Assassin, don't they talk about how all Time Lords get uploaded to the Matrix?
Yeah, in fact,
so it's just recalibrating it for anybody instead of just Time Lords. So, I mean, it's a logical assumption to make that this would visit or show up several times elsewhere.
Yeah. And I'm not that far into it yet, but I know that the Virgin New Adventures also have dealt with those concepts, and the reason why, because of the the sterility of the Time Lords, that they have to be, grown on looms. It also lends to the afterlife idea of uploading consciousness into the Matrix, and they kind of delve into that in the Virgin New Adventure stuff too. So he obviously had. I mean, he wrote a Virgin New Adventure novel, so he obviously had some familiarity there too. So he's not necessarily lifting everything from Big Finish. He's also, got a wealth of background that he's also probably farming from.
Yeah, that's true.
I say like he's still the showrunner or something.
Great artists steal.
That's right. That's right. Good artists create, great artists steal.
No, just top to bottom, I couldn't have been more pleased with this one. And again, as usual, fantastic performances all around. Paul McGann and Sheridan Smith were just outstanding, and so many little moments that worked. I loved when Lucy's inside the TARDIS database and kind of giggling along with the ship, and he's like, "What? Nothing."
She's divulging some secrets.
I'm a little sad that we only have one more. It's only one more season with Lucy, isn't it?
Yes.
And that we're almost done with these 8th Doctor stories.
And I haven't looked too far ahead, but things get a little crazy in the next series, I believe.
Like Divergent crazy?
No, not Divergent crazy, but Lucy's storyline crazy, I think.
Okay. It's never Divergent crazy.
No, nothing's Divergent crazy. Thankfully.
Not even Divergent is Divergent crazy.
All right, Sean, what we got come up on the show?
Well, next week you are in for a real treat.
I see what you did there. Two in one.
We are going to have a real time on the show. Just let me say that. Because we'll be watching, we will have already watched, hopefully, real time.
Yeah.
And we will be listening to real time. And then we will be discussing real time in real time. The conclusion of that conversation may not happen in real time. Note to self.
Depends on how much editing I do.
Yes. And beyond that, the schedule is still kind of in a state of flux. I'm putting the finishing touches on it. I didn't get it quite as done as I would have liked.
Well, to be fair, we had
in a state of done. It's just not done.
To be fair, we had some plans, and then we kind of reevaluated those plans, and that kind of jostled things up for you. So we'll forgive you.
You know. There was a plan. It wasn't a particularly good plan. I threw it out.
All right. Well, don't forget, you can find us on Apple Podcasts. You can you can listen to us on Google Play. You can also find us on Stitcher, TuneIn, Player FM, and be sure to consider becoming a patron of our podcast by supporting us on Patreon. And those of you that already support us, we're not supporting ourselves. Well, we are, but we support ourselves a lot more. Well, a lot more than we wish we didn't have to. So that's why we count on our Patreon subscribers. And we are continually looking into ways to give you just a little bit more if you are a subscriber, to say thank you. Keith, how can they contact us if they want to send feedback?
You can send it to feedback at Traveling the Vortex, or you can hop on any form of social media. We are everywhere.
Sean, where else can they find us? Maybe they can see our smiling faces.
Well, they can see our smiling faces occasionally on our YouTube channel when we upload something to it. And we can also be found on sci-fi4me.com on a little show that we're doing called TARDIS Sauce, which is very similar to the show that you're listening to, only there's moving pictures.
You can see our mugs.
Right. We have mugs. We should have Traveling the Vortex mugs. Yeah. I mean, if we're gonna be in video, we might as well plug the podcast, right?
Get on that, Glenn.
Can we have disappearing TARDIS mugs?
I've got one of those. I want to take the Traveling the Vortex one.
Yeah, I don't.
But it should be a disappearing Traveling the Vortex.
I'll look into that.
It should be a disappearing Traveling the Vortex TARDIS mug.
There you go.
There you go.
There you go. All right. Well, if that's going to do it for this week, until next week, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing you.
I'm surprised you got through that, Sean, knowing where we're sitting right now.
I was waiting for you to point to me.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.